regarding the marketing, I'm representing a country which is the first destination worldwide for tourism. Last year, France attracted 85 million tourists. As you all know, we don't have Wanyamapori, we don't have beaches as you do. The main reason why tourists are coming to France is for the cultural offer. So we have museum, we have historical sites, and we have many attractions notwithstanding the food and all these traditions which belong to culture. What is striking in Kenya is that there is a huge cultural potential which is almost untapped. What strikes me anytime I come to Mombasa is just the example of Fort Jesus. Fort Jesus is a unique historical site on the whole African continent, and Fort Jesus attracts less tourists than the Allor Park. And that's, if you check the figures, that's the case. So there is an improvement that can be achieved pretty fast, and the contribution of the private sector will be needed for the promotion of this cultural heritage. And maybe I'll detail later on.
You have such a diversity here of cultures and people and history, and I would agree with Remy that you can showcase that more ambitiously. I think also the European market has changed hugely over my lifetime, over the time that I've been a tourist. When I was growing up, it was about going somewhere affordable for a couple of weeks with good weather and a beach. And for the more ambitious people, Kenya represented that with some extra things thrown in. I think the tourist today, particularly the younger tourist, which is the market that you need to be exploiting more, I think, is also looking for an experience. They're not just looking to be parachuted in somewhere where the weather's good and there's a good beach and it's affordable. It's also less affordable than it was. They're looking for an experience, something which connects them to the local culture, something which has some kind of values attached, whether that's around conservation or community development. I was talking earlier to Shafiq about Turtle Bay, something that has that element within it, and something that feels authentic. So not necessarily the big block hotel, but the hotel that has the cottage or the bit next to the beach, or where you go and fish your own fish for dinner. So you've got those memories. The huge change, I think, is digital. And the first thing that most tourists do when they walk into their hotel rooms now is take a photograph and post it on Facebook or Instagram. And they do the same with their food. So I think in terms of marketing shifts, and Waziri is very focused on this, I know, there needs to be also a shift towards the digital market, and that sense of a constant digital interaction with the product that the client is having and that is doing your marketing for you, and how you therefore market through that, not just through the traditional challenge of buying advertising space.
We have an expertise on. This is something we do in France in some remote area of the country, using an historical site or using the voluntary contribution of local communities and with the support of the private sector. So we could work on defining and implementing, I would say, a regular show, light and sound show, using Fort Jesus and using all the history of the site, mobilizing population around, and to have a regular show that could be once a week or twice a week, that could allow a cruise ship to schedule their stop in Mombasa according to the timetable of these shows. There is a huge investment, not that big, but we're talking about an initial investment of 200,000 or 300,000 euros. So we're ready to put some money on the table for the feasibility study to bring the expert. But that would be something which will have to be done in close cooperation with the National Museum of Kenya, with the county, and with the ministry. So that's one aspect.
Travel advice is a symptom, not a cause, of the issues that people feel they face. Travel advice flows because ultimately we have a set of criteria that we need to apply, as every government does, to advise our citizens on the safety of different destinations around the world. And those flow from an assessment of the security threat, which is done in a very objective way, which is not influenceable by politics. But it's also done with a very keen awareness of the economic impact of any travel advice that we issue. which is why we think so hard before we make any changes and why we constantly try to push back the frontiers of that. And I think if you look at, it's sometimes hard to compare different countries because not everyone has a map with different colours on it, but if you look at the UK's travel advice for Kenya, it is one of the most permissive. There is no area of Kenya to which we advise against all travel, for example, which is the case for many other countries. There are some where we advise against all but essential travel, but we have reduced those significantly in recent years. But to deal with the cause is about dealing with insecurity and terrorism. And on that, I would agree with Waziri Balala earlier that the Kenyan government has made huge strides in this in recent years. And I think it's done so in partnership with countries like mine. I think other countries represented here and not represented here. The way that the Kenyan government now deals with the terrorist threat is so much more sophisticated and effective. Now, we've seen in London, in Paris, in Brussels, that no government, however capable, can deal 100% with that threat. We all face it. But strengthening our security cooperation is a big priority for the UK, as I know it is for other countries, and that leads to better travel advice, better prospects for the travel industry.
We have so-called travel advice for almost 200 different territories. We have a travel advice if you want to go to London, if you want to go to Edinburgh, and you will be advised, I don't know, not maybe the cheapest beer, but you'll be provided, any tourist will be provided advice about the way to behave, about what they should expect. So regarding Kenya, we never issued travel advice, we just updated our regular advice to the French tourist.
And I think you've got to think about the terrorist threat in the same way in terms of perception. So how do you make the Kenya product special enough, unique enough, attractive enough, that it's not just a beach with sunshine, which could be anywhere? Because if that's, I'm not saying that's what's being offered, but if that's the perception, then maybe I'll go to the Caribbean, because similar flying time, similar price, similar beach, similar weather. If you can bring out, and this is Remy's point about culture, the other point we haven't mentioned is that mankind evolved here. You've got this cradle of humanity thing, that not just more recent culture, but everything that Richard Leakey is doing in Kahc and elsewhere. If you can bring out that specialness, then people will say, well, I'll go to Kenya, not the Caribbean, because it's special. And yes, there may be a slightly higher terrorist threat, but I'm used to that in London or Paris or wherever else. I think that's one way to look at that.